2022. To view this meeting's presentation documents, please access Board Docs. The link to the Board Docs website can be found via the D38 website, which is www.lewispalmer.org on the Board of Education /meetings webpage. To view the live stream video of this meeting, please go to the Lewis Palmer School District 38 YouTube page. Ms. Wood, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Clausen?
Here.
Ms. Phillips?
Here.
Mr. Schwartz?
Here.
Mr. Taylor?
Here?
Ms. Upchurch?
Here.
Excellent. I think now we'll have a Pledge of Allegiance, and we have one of our favorite students. If you'll just use the microphone and introduce yourself to everyone, and then we'll all join you.
Okay. I'm Kira Griffin.
Kira?
At Barebotics 4068. Yeah. Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Second.
Any comments or questions? Hearing none. Ms. Wood?
Mr. Clausen?
Aye.
Ms. Phillips?
Aye.
Mr. Schwartz?
Aye.
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Upchurch?
Aye.
Thank you. We'll jump right now into the Section B recognitions. Our first one this evening is for BombBomb, a video software company. And Mr. Chris Coulter, our Executive Director of Operations and Development, will introduce Darren Dawson.
Good evening, members of the board. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Mr. Darren Dawson. He is a co-founder of BombBomb, along with a gentleman by the name of Connor McCluskey. BombBomb's mission is to make it easy to build relationships through email, text, and social media. In 2006, Darren experimented by sending a video email to his client list, and in response, it was absolutely overwhelming. The result, BombBomb was launched. Growing in the tech community in Colorado Springs, for example, BombBomb has grown dramatically over the past decade, and they maintain a positive, collaborative culture based on a clear mission and a number of core values. BombBomb was recently named the best medium-sized company to work for in Colorado by Colorado Biz Magazine. And here are the facts. 145 people work for BombBomb, mostly from home now. Their average customer satisfaction score is greater than 98%. 130 million minutes of video were sent through BombBomb last year. And nearly 50 separate countries are using BombBomb today. What are BombBomb's core values? They are relationships, fun, and service. It is the service that I want to talk about tonight and get your comments on and talk with Darren a little bit about. Their service core value says, expect nothing in return. Unselfishly give your talent and abilities to assist and benefit others. It gives me great pleasure, and I want to give a big thank you to Darren and his team for the absolute number of gifts of furniture that they gave to every single one of our schools. They unselfishly and set everything up and made it very, very easy, but I wanted to turn it over to Darren and let him sort of be acknowledged by the board.
Excellent.
Thanks, Chris. You bet. It's a pretty good introduction. You missed one core value, and that's humility. That's one of our core values. That's okay. I don't mean it to, but I want to say that because it wasn't actually me. So my wife, she's right there. She didn't want to come up. Angie Dawson has worked for the district for 18 years. We've been married 16. And when we started BombBomb, part of that core value formation is Connor and I and our wives, we feel like we own this business together. It's been us. I've been friends with Connor for a long time. And so And when Ange and I got married, he was kind of in our relationship too. Like we were there at the formation of this company. And so Ange, I came home one night and said, I got a real problem. I got 30,000 square feet of furniture and I don't know what I'm going to do with it. And she said, I do. And she got a hold of Jess McAllister and they came down and they checked out what we had and they're like, I think, you know, the schools could really benefit. I'm like, fantastic, because that's just a problem for me to solve. But we literally would have just, I don't know, thrown a bunch of stuff away. And so I just, you know, Ange knows what you guys need. She's been here a long time. Jess knew, and then helped us connect with Chris, and then our staff, Marissa is our office manager, to connect, and they just got it all done over a course of like 2 weeks, moved everything. So thank you for helping Bomb Bomb liquidate. You know, we had just renovated an entire floor in 2019, right before the pandemic hit, and then now we have 5,000 square feet space with about 20 people, and then the other 120 or 30 or so are just everywhere. So thank you all. I appreciate the help, and thanks, Ange. Good job.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We have a
Mr. Dawson, before.
Get a picture there. Yeah. Chris sat down. Chris he's avoiding the picture.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Our next agenda item is B2. This is student recognition, Palmer Ridge High School and Lewis Palmer High School speech and debate teams. And we have coaches Aaron White and Brian Hoff to introduce the students.
Hi, I'm Erin White. I taught at Palmer Ridge High School, and I currently coach at Palmer Ridge High School and have done so for the last 6 years or so. But we had a couple of kids qualify for nationals in Kentucky this year. To qualify for nationals, they usually have to be top 2 at the district qualifying tournament. So it's a really competitive endeavor for all of our kids to do that. So I don't know if Mr. Hoff wants to introduce himself as well.
Hi, my name is Brian Hoff. I've been coaching speech and debate for around 15 years. And again, if people don't know necessarily what speech and debate is, it's one of those things where these students actually find and use their voice, and ultimately they can use it to change the world. The speech and debate national tournament that we're going to in Kentucky this summer is a week-long tournament. It's the largest academic competition in the world for high school students. There's going to be around 600 schools represented and over 6,000 students in a series of 20 different events. And so ultimately, what these students have to do to get there is show an incredible amount of drive, an incredible amount of skill and talent and passion. And I always tell my students too, there's nothing that they can't do if they practice, if they work hard. It's not one of those sports or activities or skills where you need a lot of natural talent. It's one of those sports or activities where hard work trumps everything else. And so these students behind me now have shown that dedication all through the year. And in my case, and I'm not sure about Palmer Ridge, and you can mention that, but I know that my one student that showed up tonight, 1 out of 4, has been doing this for 4 years, and she has shown, she's one of my captains for the year, she's shown great dedication, great hard work and ethics, and ultimately she's going to be one of those ones that changes the world with her speech. So I would like to introduce Anita Gachuki. Please come up, just say hi. Yeah.
Hi, yeah, I'm Anita, and yeah, as Hoff said, I'm a senior now, so I'm gonna graduate on Friday. That's insane. But yeah, I was a captain, and I agree with him wholeheartedly. This club takes so much dedication, but also just takes like a heart and a passion for it. And I just really love doing it, like so much. And so it's really exciting. I've never been to nationals before, so it's really exciting that I finally get to do this, and I finally get to show the rest of the nation like what I love to do, and do it with some of my best friends. So it's really exciting.
And Palmer Ridge has 2 of 3 here. We have Lux Palmer. She qualified in something called Program Oral Interpretation. I'll let her talk about that. And Dia Suri and her partner, Cole Wickert, qualified in Public Forum Debate, which I'll let her talk about as well. So Lux, you want to start? Lux was also one of my captains this year.
Hello, my name is Lux Palmer. You probably recognize me from the corner at every board meeting. I've been doing speech and debate for about 7 years now. It is one of my favorite things to do. I'm doing program oral interpretation this year, which is essentially a mix of prose, poetry, and drama, and you mix mediums in order to tell a story or deliver a theme or a message. So I think speech and debate is a really important skill for a lot of students, especially those with anxiety and they don't know how to talk publicly. If I hadn't done speech and debate, I probably would not be able to be here talking to you. So it is an incredible skill, and I'm so grateful not only for the skills that I have gained from 7 years of speech and debate, but a lot of very close friends and a lot of memories. So, thank you.
Okay, hi everyone, my name is Dia Suri, and this is my 3rd year in speech and debate. I'm a junior at Palmer Ridge, and I do public forum debate, which is basically partner debate. And this has been a really nice time for me because it has not only forced me to look at like both sides of an argument, it's also exposed me to a wide variety of topics, everything from the Belt and Road Initiative in China to the Space Force, and most recently organic farming. So it's really exposed me to a wide variety of topics. It's given me a lot of analytical skills, which I apply in my classes every day, and it's also made me a more confident person overall.
We're going to have you stand up again for more pictures, and we have a couple of cards for you as well.
Awesome. So the next item is B3, and it's again a student recognition, and this is the Barebotics Club. Head coach Mike Hinkle is here and will introduce the team and number 4068. I'm not sure the name.
This one is named Haribo,
Haribo.
which is a gummy bear brand name, by the way.
Yeah.
So gummy bears are very important to the feeding and caring of this team. So we will give a chance to introduce our robot, and thank you for giving us some space and the opportunity to do that. It's a special opportunity. But real quick, we have 41 students on the team. They are all active, hands-on students. For the FRC team, which built this, they put in an average of over 150 hours during the school year. So this is a big deal. We call it a varsity sport for the mind. We take it just as seriously as the students who are doing other forms of athletics take those sports. But let me do a quick run through real quick. I'll go from the left. So you can just raise your hand when I call your name. We have Noreen and Ben Griffin, who are mentors. Okay, Reese. I know you're Gearhart. Sorry, I know your name front ways and backwards, Reese. But so this is Reese. She was one of our rookies. David Nunez, who was our team captain. Kara Griffin, who's on the FRC team. Eric Vandenhoek, who is a mentor. One of our new mentors this year. Cameron Hinkle, who was the engineering lead for this project. David Wynn. Dane Vandenhoek and Ben Liddell, and Jeanette Breton, who was the FTC coach. So some of the cool things, can I do the slides? I can probably, So one of the cool things about Barobotics, so it's been 3 years since we've been able to do this unencumbered. So we were really looking forward to it, but we had a big gap in experience in the team. One of the cool things is students really indicated a ton of interest. We had 26 new students on the team. Out of those 41, 26 had never done robotics before. So it was both a blessing and a challenge. It was by far our biggest ever rookie team. What we did, Coach Breton and I created 3 FTC teams. We got community support behind that. So that's a whole new addition to Barobotics that we've never had before. And what it does is it allows freshmen and sophomore students to come in and instantly get real-world hands-on experience with some very difficult engineering challenges. And we love the difficulty of these challenges because the difficulty is the opportunity. So, you know, it's not studying things in books for a test you're going to take on paper. It's working through real engineering problems to build real robots like that. That particular robot won the regional competition that it went to, and that team went to the state championship as a rookie. That's really hard to do. So that was a tremendous achievement. Reese was part of that team. You know, another really cool thing that happened, we added 8 new mentors. That was not accidentally. It was, you know, it was not easy. All of these mentors are experienced professionals. And they're getting involved because they believe in the value of the program. So that was really cool stuff. But you know, one of the reasons we're here and what Dr. Summers, you got to see when you came out to visit is what our senior team is achieving and accomplishing. They're the ones who built this robot. It was a team of 15 juniors and seniors, a couple sophomores thrown into that mix. So we did a bunch of new things this year. I mean, achieved new things, to be clear. So yes, 3 years ago, last time you saw us, we came in here with the championship banner, which was fantastic. But the reality is this game is played 3-on-3, and we were the second pick of the winning alliance. That means we were one of the last kids standing when it came time to pick, which again, we stood up to that. We earned that and we won that. This year we achieved second in the exact same situation where we led that alliance. That's like 3 orders of magnitude more accomplishment. And this team really stood up to that engineering challenge. And we're going to show you what that looks like here in a minute with a real live demo in the room. A couple other things that we're really proud of. The next slide will illustrate this a little bit more completely. We are now, based on the statistics of robot performance, and there's a big element of team performance in this too. We're now the 3rd ranked team in Colorado. That's name every high school that you can think of, every school district you can think of, we beat them. And we're in the top 6% in the world. So this is a program with like 3,300 teams across the world in 26 countries. We believe we now can make the claim that we are a world-class program and a world-class team, which we think is pretty fantastic. So this is our track record against the top competition in Colorado based on year. Believe it or not, that black line is blue. It looks a whole lot more like our T-shirts. But the 4068 line, that started out pretty low, you know, when we made a shift in the program 5 years ago. 5 years ago, we were thinking, well, how can we get competitive with the top 20% in Colorado? We felt that that's where the students here could be, and we felt that's where this school district deserved to be. Well, as you can see, this is real, based on real performance data from our real achievements every year. We passed everybody except for the only ones left are true world-class teams in Colorado. In fact, that last one, the light blue line up there, they won the whole thing. They won the world championship this year. So we were one of the few teams that almost beat them. our score was 84-80 when we went up against them. That is really close. It came down to a couple shots. But, you know, that is fantastic accomplishment that we're really quite proud of. And again, we have done this the right way. We've done this by building the program, giving the students more opportunities, building the knowledge and resources that the students can access, and really growing the mentorship community that can help students learn and achieve more. So we love all that. We're really excited by it, but we want to show you the robot because we think that's pretty exciting also. So one thing I would say in the front row, you don't need to worry. The robot will come at you. But it is under a very high level of control. If the balls come your way, they weigh less than half a pound, okay? So there is no damage in those balls. But this first thing we're going to show you, the first trick, this robot is going to drive itself through a series of maneuvers. So Cameron is the driver in this case. He's just going to hold up his hands once it starts, and the robot is going to go through a series of maneuvers. This is a capability that we have totally developed over the last 3 years. We could not do this 3 years ago. Go ahead. Totally automated control. Drive around a little bit more. Kira, if you could get those balls a little bit away from the stand, please. One of the things we love about this robot is it has a capability called swerve drive. So if you look at it, how it moves on the field, it does not move like a car or a tank. It can go any direction, any time, and it can turn while it's going straight. I can't tell you how much work the team put into that capability, and we're one of the few teams in Colorado that can do this currently. So one of the other really important engineering things about this robot is you see a big white wheel on the back of it, a pair of white wheels. Those are the main wheels that project the ball or shoot the ball, if you will. But if we had only those wheels, the balls would spin. And the actual shooting hub that we had to shoot into would reject balls that were spinning. So we've got a secondary set of wheels up there that actually take all the spin off the ball. So it's actually a knuckle ball. It's just like it's being tossed by an open hand. And all that ranging, everything that's going on, the robot is finding the target and ranging automatically. All the drivers have to do is collect balls and get the robot into a good position for shooting. All right, let's take one more round of 2 balls, Cameron, and then let's go over here and do a climb. All right, so this was one of the harder engineering challenges that we had this year. These pipes that the robot is going to climb are just plain old slippery metal pipes. They are notoriously difficult to grab onto. So, okay. So the robot actually could climb a series of 3 of these. We were being extra careful in here because we figured this was not a good time for an oops. But it can actually climb a series of 3 of those and do that whole operation in about 15 seconds, which was one of the better performing robots out there for this capability. So we're very proud of this. We're super proud of these students for coming up with all these ideas and the designs. This robot is all student designed and all student built. So it's really fantastic, and we think it's a great program and opportunity for future engineering students in D38.
Coach Hinkle, can I add one more thing? There's so much to celebrate and acknowledge based on this team's accomplishments. But one of the things that is definitely worthy of recognition is that this team was recognized with the Gracious Professionalism Award. Can you just speak briefly to the Gracious Professionalism Award and what that signifies?
Thank you very much for that reminder. I keep forgetting that, although it is super important. So we participate in an international robotics program called FIRST Robotics. Gracious professionalism is the #1 value of that environment. So what gracious professionalism basically means that if your grandma was watching everything that you did, she would be proud. She would be proud not only of what you achieved or tried to achieve on the field, but how you interacted with, and especially how you helped your competitors. So we don't spike the ball on people, we don't talk trash about robots in front of people or behind their backs. As I'm sorry, that does happen too much in the sporting world. We help. And so the exact thing that led to that, we have a practice day on Thursday at all of our events. At the Colorado practice day, we actually got accidentally knocked off of this assembly while we were climbing on the front and top of the robot. So the whole climbing assembly broke on Thursday. I literally thought that competition was over for us. Now, because of these students, the next morning, we set the high score for all of Colorado in all the events that every Colorado team went to. That was pretty cool. But they got it together and they put it back together better. But we could have been very resentful. We could have gone and spread ill will. Instead, we went over to help that on their team, and we actually were trying to pick them in the end to be a partner with us. Well, that kind of spirit and that kind of action got noticed, and that's why we got that award. So that's something we're very proud of, although for some reason this coach keeps forgetting to mention that.
We have people to help remind you, Coach Hinkle. So what if I'd love to get a picture with the whole team, and we also have another note of recognition. So thank you.
While you're coming together, I would just suggest maybe next year play some defense.
Not as fun.
Do we have a moment for questions?
I think that'd be great, and I know there's some breakdown that's occurring, so absolutely, Mr. Schwartz, if you'd like to.
So my question is, how software intensive was the project? And tell us a little bit about how you chose to write the code and why you wrote the code the way you wrote it.
Go for it, Cameron.
So we wrote the code, we used Java as our language. It was, very complex because we had to write the program not only for all the actions when you were driving the robot, but also the actions when it was in autonomous. We used multiple different software programs, but the majority of it was written just from scratch in Java. We had different libraries from different companies and institutes that we used, and just a lot of testing and trial and error to get it to work.
How buggy was it for you?
I mean, the first, draft that we wrote, or not draft, but the first time we wrote something and tested it, had a lot of issues, and then we would go back and fix, each issue. as it popped up, but by the end it works pretty well. So
Way to go. Super good skills.
thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess I'll take take a crack. Since you guys are still tearing down, I want to say a huge congratulations because, as everybody knows, the Robotics team has a special place in my heart. My son was he was a part of the 2013-2014 team, and how far this team has come. And I would encourage anybody, including my fellow board members, to go and watch a competition. They take that entire Denver University arena, and it is a huge, massive playing field, and they choose alliances, and there's so much going on, and the pit is amazing. It's kind of like we used to, and Robotics truly is just as much dedication and sometimes more than any other athletic sport. And these students, they earn their letters that they get on their jackets. They're working 7 days a week sometimes when it comes to build season. So huge congratulations. Like, it brings a tear to my heart. It warms my heart so much to see how far you guys have grown and the amazing things you've done. So congratulations.
Now you got to figure out how to get that out without disassembling it.
Hey, Ron, can you explain what Java is?
Yes, it's a word for coffee. It's a programming language invented by Sun Microsystems, mostly for web-based stuff.
Hi, I'm Cameron. So we spend a lot of time on this robot, so I can kind of just guide you through what we do to make something like Haribo. So the first weekend of January, we get our game. So we don't know, unlike traditional sports, we don't know what game we're playing whenever we come into it. We have to brainstorm and figure out what we're going to do. So we spend our entire weekend brainstorming and coming up with ideas how we want to play this game and prototyping mechanisms of how we might want to build our robot. And then the next few weeks, we design our entire robot in CAD, which is computer-aided design. So before we build our robot, we make it in the computer, so we are able to work with constraints and all that, which is a real-world software that many engineering companies use. I was the person in charge of doing that CAD. And then we fabricate it on machines. So we have our machines making more robots. And those cut our robot, and then we assemble them. And then our programmers program them. That was our programming lead. I'm not sure if, yeah, he said it. But they programmed them, and then I was one of the drivers along with David, who was out there disassembling. And we practiced driving our robot to get ready for the competitions, find any mechanical flaws, any programming flaws before we go to competition. And then once we're at the competition, we just play the game as hard as we can while trying to be gracious and professional. And then we try to take home some awards. So, yeah.
Thank you again.
Thank you so much.
Our next agenda item is B4, public comments. We follow board policy BEDH, and I'm not going to read it just to spare us. We have one public comment tonight. This is in the board docs, so everyone has access to see this policy. So our one public comment is Angela Dawson.
Hi guys, I'm just here tonight. I have a current 6th grader. He's about to be a 7th grader next year. And it was just brought to my attention. I should be a little more tuned in. I do work in the district, but I'm currently at Palmer Ridge, and I've been there for the past 3 years. But prior to that, I spent 16 years at the middle school level. And I was saddened to hear that teaming went away at our middle school, and I just wanted to bring it to you guys as a concerned parent and as well as a staff member in the district. If you guys aren't aware, the benefits of teaming, they align beautifully with our district strategic plan and the core values within that plan. And what the teaming model looks like is 100 or so students are placed with 4 core academic teachers, and those kids interact for math, science, social studies, and language arts. They go to lunch together, they go to exploratories together. So it's really a school inside a school. So when you're bringing our 5 elementary schools into 1 middle school with a class of around 400, it's like these mini schools, like I said, within a school. And so that just encompasses the district strategic plan and as I mentioned before, those core values of that sense of belonging. Because right now they're running a high school schedule, and middle school is really designed to be that stepping stone in between elementary and high school. And so I realized it was a strategic plan on the district's part for financial reasons, but this year, looking at student enrollment numbers at the middle school as well as the staffing ratio, they could have returned to teaming this year. And so my hope is that you guys can partner with me and other concerned parents to see this model return, because it's age-appropriate programming for students. So I'm happy to help answer questions, but again, like I just saw as a counselor and a teacher working in the middle school level for those years, just there's so many benefits that go on behind the scenes. And with those 4 teachers, they work closely together. Their classrooms are next to each other. Their lockers are all next to each other. And there's just, again, so many benefits that I would like to see my son and my daughters receive from that teaming model. So,
thank you very much.
You.
Our next agenda item is B5, board member comments. And since we're all together again, it's so nice to see you all, by the way.
See everyone else.
Can we start with you, Matt, and we'll just work our way this direction?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Earlier this month, I had the privilege of attending a lacrosse game at Lewis Palmer. This was very special in many respects. Last year, we lost one of our young men that had graduated from Lewis Palmer, Riley Chrysler, tragically. And when that event transpired, I think it caused us all to reflect on how important our youth are. This particular event, they actually retired his number. I think it's the first time that that had been done, and under the direction of Bridget O'Connor, our principal, and Nick Baker, our athletic director. It was a wonderful event to celebrate the life of Riley Chrysler, but more importantly, it gave us the opportunity to have a moments of silence to reflect on everything that he had brought to this community and what we could do as individuals to grow together as community leaders. One thing I wanted to point out is there is a Riley Chrysler Memorial Fund. It's called Jumpstart, and if there's not any objections, Mr. Taylor, I'd like to post a link on that to the website. But it's a way to support kids in Riley's similar situation before he passed. Then today, I had another unique experience. I got to participate in the Amazing Race. This was the second time I've done that at LP Middle School, and And it was great being there with our kids. You know, Miss Locke is always, Miss Block, excuse me, always does a wonderful job. But it was great interacting with the teachers and the kids specifically. And it's good to see the kids back in school enjoying being kids. But I also had the opportunity to talk with several teachers there as well. And one common theme was that there's some frustration. There's some frustration that we're one of the highest performing districts in the state, but probably one of the lower paying districts in the state. And that was a little concerning how many of the individuals I spoke with, that was the common theme. So I'm glad that's on the board's radar screen. And as one board member, I want everyone, all of our teachers to know, as well as all the D38 team members to know that, you know, I support you 100%. Now, I've been on the board for nearly 7 years, 3.5 years as the board president, and I don't think there was a single time I met with the superintendent that we didn't discuss ways that we could put more money to our District 38 team members. So we have some constraints, and we're exploring options, and I appreciate the direction that Mr. Taylor has provided, as well as Dr. Summers. And lastly, just want to thank our teachers and other team members for a wonderful school year, relatively incident-free, which is always a good thing. I'm looking at Dennis back there, and he's kind of smiling. But it was truly a great year, and it was nice to have things normalized for our kids. They deserve it. And so that's all I have, Mr. Taylor.
Thank you very much. Ron?
Thank you. Probably be traditional, get the mic close, yes? This is a great time of year for those of us in the district and for the students. At the end of this week, we culminate the real core of the whole reason we're here and our mission of safe, quality, and accessible education. So for our 6th and 8th graders, it's their time for continuation, and it's a real joyous occasion. And for our high schools, Friday this week, they'll be graduating and going off into the world. This milestone really is the essence of what this D38 team does, along with our parents and our community members. And it's really what when we try to achieve this safe, high-quality experience, it's designed to deliver lasting results. And specifically, I want to take a minute and articulate what those results look like. They look like 17 and 18-year-olds who are well prepared to enter the academic and or professional or service field that they choose, not that we choose for them. It's young adults that have a breadth of both academic and extracurricular experiences and some exposure to the world that they're going to enter, so they don't enter it blindly. And maybe most importantly, it's a set of quality standards that makes them proud to be contributors to the environments that they elect to become part of. So I encourage everybody that's watching or listening, or will watch later on video, to congratulate each and every student, but also staff member and parent volunteer for being part of the village that it takes to get this done. And please keep in mind, the youth in this country represent about 22% of the population, but they're 100% of the future. And I certainly don't take for granted the efforts and the achievements that are necessary to get them to this spot. So heartfelt congratulations from me to everybody in the D38 community for doing this, as Mr. Clausen mentioned, regardless of what's happening around us. We persevere and go through that, and that actually is the mark of a true professional. So thank you and the staff and the parents for doing this. These kids deserve it.
Thank you, Ron. Tiffany?
Ron, you took the words out of my mouth. So I'll be brief. I also want to say congratulations to our D38 graduates. It was this time last year when I was seeing my own daughter walk across the stage. And congratulations to all of our continuing students. It's good to be back to normal where we've seen from start to finish how these kids have grown. And tonight's demonstrations from our speech and debate team to our robotics team is also, it reminds me, and I hope it reminds everybody else, that there is a place and a niche and a passion for every student in D38. There's something, and that's what prepares them for going on in the future. The robotics team is why my son's at School of Mines studying mechanical engineering. Speech and debate was why I got a communication degree at UNC back in the day. So it's interesting, and what I wanted to point out too is it's the teachers behind our kids and it's the parents behind our kids. Our parents, how we raise our kids in this community is so inspiring, and the kids we have that graduate from these schools is so inspiring. I had the honor of celebrating at every single one of our buildings except one for Teacher and Staff Appreciation Week. And the only reason I wasn't at that one is I had to pick up my college kiddo from school. And now she's back, and they're both back in town and visiting friends and just seeing how our kids grow up. And this is our community. These are our kids. And so congratulations to our teachers, congratulations to our parents, congratulations to our students, and also the community that supports them, such as Bomb Bomb. So I just want to say a heartfelt congratulations to everyone.
Thank you, Tiffany. Teresa?
I don't know that I can summarize or top what the last three board members have said, but I just want to acknowledge, first I want to congratulate all of our graduates, and I also want to acknowledge that this time of year can be somewhat bittersweet, not just for parents who are looking at their graduates and remembering that they used to be yay high, but also that there may, amidst all of the celebrations that we're enjoying and that we want to fully enjoy, we also still are facing challenges, and we still have that sense that we have work to do. And so I wouldn't want anyone in our community to think that we as a board have lost any sense of that, but that you have a fully committed board to leaning into those challenges and working forward, but also fully participating in the celebrations that are about to occur. So congratulations to the class of 2022.
Thank you, Teresa. I appreciate everyone's comments and agree wholeheartedly. I'd like to just add that I had the opportunity to serve breakfast 5 days a week or so ago to teachers and staff, and what a joyous experience that was because of the smiles and the thank yous and the kindness that was shown. Regardless of which school I was at 5 different schools, the feeling of appreciation, the reciprocal respect, the kindness that occurred was overwhelming to me. I told my wife, I said, this is amazing how good these people really are. And it just made me feel good that our children are in their hands. And that's an important aspect. So yes, I enjoyed serving food. Yes, I enjoyed the smiles. But what really hit me was these are the people that partner with our parents to help our children. And what a great group of people. And I only got to go to 5 out of 8 or 12 different events, but it was phenomenal. And I want to thank our teachers. And the portrait of a graduate that we saw this year that was developed, we get to see several hundred of them on Friday. So I'm excited for the graduation that's occurring. It'll be absolutely phenomenal, as it always is. And Dr. Summers, with that, I'll let you do the superintendent update.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor, as well as all of our board members and the public comment that occurred earlier. Really appreciate everybody's sentiments and the way that you all are continuing to support the system forward. Vicki, do you have thank you, ma'am. Okay, so I will work through this pretty expeditiously, if that's okay with you all, starting with something that's already been alluded to. The culminating event for the year, which is graduation. On Friday, May 20th, we will be honoring our Lewis Palmer High School graduates at 10 a.m., followed by our Palmer Ridge High School graduates at 2 p.m. Back at the Broadmoor World Arena. We're excited to be back there. There will be live streaming of this event at our website, and very excited to celebrate that momentous occasion with our kids, our staff, our families, the whole community. So really looking forward to that celebration. Our priority one update this evening is a few things. So we are excited to share that we have completed our second round of panorama survey results for the year. So we are going to demonstrate the middle of the year to the end of year results, which will be compiled and shared upcoming here in June. This evening we do have a character education resource regulation that we have drafted that we would like to present and process through with you all. So that's just a quick teaser as we work through our agenda. And then I'm very pleased to announce that we are the recipients of a Counselor Corps grant, which is a multi-year grant via State of Colorado funding. Year one of implementation will occur in this upcoming school year. We are proactively getting ready for the implementation process, which is going to include the allocation of ESSER $3 to add a third counselor at Lewis Palmer Middle School and a fifth counselor at both LP and PR for the upcoming school year. And that will transition to Counselor Corps grant funding for years 2 through 4, and we hope for many years to come. So this is a very well-deserved recognition and acknowledgement of the hard work that went into the application process, all of our counselors, and really our mental health professionals across all of our secondary schools. And so we will be in a position to expand the way that we're providing programming and transition support, et cetera, through the implementation of this grant. Ms. Phillips, did you have something? I was trying to read your...
No, I don't have anything to
Okay.
add. I'm just thrilled to death.
Yeah,
that it was awarded to D38. So.
It's a really good reaction.
Congratulations
So,
to everybody who worked on it. It was quite a team effort. A lot of people were involved, and Jess McAllister.
She's a rock star, and I know our counselors are really excited, so including Ms. Dawson in the crowd. So thank you all for the support on that effort. Our priority 2 update is a few items, so including just a reference to the adoption of a supplementary resource, which we are referring to as Physics in a Box. We've got really positive feedback from our community, so that will appear on the consent agenda this evening. We are in the process also of receiving our end-of-year academic assessment data. So we are in the early stages of analyzing that early literacy as well as our NWEA MAP achievement and growth data. Seen some very promising results, and again, looking forward to providing a more detailed update as we move forward into June. And then there are 2 new team members for our Learning Services team, which include Annette Palmer, currently the gifted and talented facilitator at Lewis Palmer Middle, who will be joining the Learning Services team as the district facilitator for the upcoming school year, and then also Mr. Steve Falcone, current English teacher at Palmer Ridge, who will join the team as an instructional technology coach, replacing Miss Suzanne McGarrico, who's retiring this year. Vicki, I'm getting an error. I'm not sure what that's about. Maybe just close that box. And if we need to use the mouse, we can do that.
I'm looking to Mark. He rescued me earlier.
Did we lose a priority 3 slide? Oh, shoot.
I've got it, but...
I have it up. I can see it on mine.
Pardon the technical difficulty. I will just read to you what's on the priority 3 update from the other version that is on our board docs agenda. So as was mentioned earlier, we do want to give another shout out to all of our teachers and our staff in honor of Appreciation Week, and special appreciation to our board members as well as our executive team leaders who helped serve meals and are also in the process of continuing to distribute anniversary and retirement gifts. Do want to call out, as was also alluded to, some hiring season challenges. So we are continuing to run into issues with vacancies. We still have a number of vacancies that are in our system. This was updated as of this morning, which include 19 certified staff, 14 special education, 11 paraprofessionals, and I just took the highest numbers of those vacancies. There are other openings that you can find at our job board. I do want to just mention something that has been introduced from our last board meeting, which is something that we were confronted with as we looked at what many other districts in our area are currently doing to attract and recruit new talent. They have implemented hiring bonuses. And so what we have found in the implementation of what you see underneath here, which include a $2,500 hiring bonus for all new certified position hires, a $1,000 hiring bonus for new classified hires, which kicks in 2 increments after 90 days and 1 year in the position. And then also a hiring and retention bonus for our hard-to-fill positions, which are particularly found in the area of special service provision or special education resource providers. And so what this is intending to do is essentially lead toward ideally more candidates accepting positions as they are offered, which I can tell you that there have been at least a handful of teachers or certified staff members that following the introduction or rollout of this bonus structure are now saying yes to these position offers. What I will tell you is it's still, financially speaking, this is what we're able to do right now. Unfortunately, we're not in a position where we can do this for all of our staff all at once, which is, definitely another dynamic that we want to speak to. So that is the current update as we continue to march forward. I will let you know that we will be working hard throughout the summer, including May, June, and into July, to make sure that we have all of our positions satisfied. But there are definitely some dynamics and some challenges that we're continuing to run into in this particular arena. I'll pause because I'm just making sure I'm responding to any questions that may be there.
Are the other districts around us offering similar bonuses?
Yes. Yep. Pretty much everyone around us is.
What's the process or intent on the retention? How does it work?
Essentially, we are looking to retain those individuals that are still in these positions so that they are not leaving, as well as to attract folks that are in for more than just 1 year at a time. So the goal is to hire folks that are going to be with us for a minimum of 3 years. And we'll have to capture some data to really make sure that it is achieving its intended impact.
Thank you.
Yep. And then another quick plug around the calendar update, which is another agenda item coming up a little bit later this evening. So we'll go into a little bit more detail at that time. Priority 4, I will also keep very brief. We have our proposed budget update ready for you all for the 22-23 school year. This will include a student fees update, which is a consent agenda item. There's also a revision to both our classified and certified salary schedules. We'll go into more detail with that within the proposed budget. And then we will have our, I believe, 4th, an upcoming financial advisory committee meeting scheduled for this June. And also happy to report that we have completed our spring edition of Engage and Elevate sessions. We would like to provide more of a recap of not only the content from those sessions, but also some different ways to look at how we can maintain and sustain those sessions going into next school year and beyond. We will be providing an end-of-the-year recap and newsletter that will go out later this week. And there will also be a DAC update. Our District Advisory Accountability Committee will be with us at our upcoming June board meeting. And not making the slide, but just a quick shout out to our Director of Communication, which had the recognition of School Communicators Day last Friday the 13th. So shout out to Mark for being an awesome school communicator.
Thank you, and we kept that one quiet specifically due to the date.
Yeah, he took out the detail. So, a few other slides. We have several May kudos at our news.lewispalmer.org address, so you can read through those nominations for these well-deserving individuals recognized in May. We are excited to share that our DECA teams, I should say, did extremely well at the international conference. 8 Palmer Ridge students traveled to Atlanta to compete. 3 of our students were recognized on stage for their efforts and competitive scores against global competition, another theme of world class that you're hearing this evening. We had our Bare Necessity Theater Company from Palmer Ridge, which received some Bobby G nominations, including Once Upon a Mattress production, nominated for 6 Bobby G Award categories, including Outstanding Overall Production, and there will be an awards ceremony held in the next week. Colorado Springs Down Syndrome Association has acknowledged Brandy Doan with a Teacher Appreciation Award. Awardees were recognized for their commitment to positively impacting a student with Down syndrome, and there was a $600 scholarship included, so big shout out to Mrs. Doan. Some awesome spring athletics updates, including our Palmer Ridge women's tennis place, second in the 4A state championships. Big kudos to them. We had 4 Lewis Palmer women's tennis state qualifiers. Our Lewis Palmer High School men's swim and dive team was undefeated in dual and championship season and placed 15th in 5A. At the state championships. And then we had our Lewis Palmer High School baseball player, Max Randus, honored recently by KOAA as an Athlete of the Week. And then last but not least, the Palmer Ridge Knowledge Bowl team made championship round in competition and placed 3rd in division. And so kudos to students on the team for this impressive feat. And I believe that marks the conclusion of this particular update. Any other questions that I can help answer?
Can I add one?
Oh, yeah, please.
The art awards that was here.
Yeah,
that was
absolutely.
pretty fantastic.
The Air Academy Federal Credit Union Art Award ceremony occurred it was about 3-4 weeks ago here in the Learning Center. And we had several outstanding students who were recognized. And we sadly missed the art as it's pulled down and then returned to schools and our artists. But yeah, definitely a treat.
Any other comments, suggestions, questions? Awesome. Let's go on to C1. And Dr. Summers, if you would do us the honor of introducing a new principal hire for Ray Kilmer Elementary School.
Absolutely. So I'd like to invite Mr. Brian Pohl up to the front here and the microphone. So I'd like to just say a few words about our process for selecting the new principal at Ray Kilmer Elementary School, who is Mr. Pohl here. First and foremost, we were very pleased and appreciative of all of the great stakeholder engagement from the Kilmer staff and parents and even students as we worked on creating a leadership profile for our new leader. So there were a number of characteristics that the community as a whole really felt strongly about. Namely, chief among them was somebody that could really relate and understand the culture of the Kilmer Elementary School family and the specific values that are in alignment with ultimately who we were able to attract as candidates to the position. We had a number of applicants. I think we totaled close to 25, which is a nice pool, especially in a challenging hiring season. Mr. Pohl and I think we ended up interviewing 4 other candidates, so a total of 5 candidates came forward for an interview process. And a big shout out to the volunteers who served on the advisory team, which included staff representatives, parent representatives, and a big shout out to the students who helped lead a tour of the school. And so our candidates had the opportunity to not only receive that tour, but to provide a leadership story. They answered a number of questions that were in alignment with the leadership profile that we were looking very closely at. And through all of those processes, what I can tell you is that we were very excited that Mr. Pohl naturally aligned very closely with those look-fors. And I'll just give you just kind of a brief overview of Mr. Pohl, and then he can say a few words here. I'm going to pull this right off of his resume because I think it speaks loud and clear to one of the traits that was very evident in his candidacy. His objective is to build positive and trusting relationships with students, staff, and the community by capturing their heart. He will work to collaboration where shared leadership leads to achievement at our highest ability level, and his compelling vision for the future will focus efforts on creating the positive culture that breeds systemic success in school. So Mr. Pohl has highly qualified status in science as well as technology education. He has a Master of Education in Educational Leadership from Colorado State University. Most recently, he's coming to us from Widefield School District, where he was the founding principal and has been the principal at a K-8 school there since June of 2018. He also has extensive principal and assistant principal experience from where I believe he grew up in Ohio. And includes extensive teaching background where he was a technology teacher and goes all the way back. I won't date you too much, Mr. Pohl. But there's just several reasons why we're very excited to welcome Mr. Pohl here with us this evening. And without further ado, I'd love to allow Brian to say a few words and introduce himself to the board.
Yeah, first of all, just thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I've gotten to meet several people tonight, and I look forward to meeting the rest of you as time permits. Just to say a little bit about the robotics stuff that was up here. I'm kind of a tech guy, as you mentioned, from my past. One of the things I always remember is about 10% of your effort goes towards fabricating hardware and software and writing code, and about 90% of your effort goes towards figuring out why it didn't work. So that's a great skill set to have for later in life. What those kids did here was awesome and by no means easy. That's amazing what they're doing. I just want to say I appreciate being here and becoming part of the Lewis Palmer team. You guys are accredited with distinction as a district. You're a great school system, and I look forward to joining the team and hopefully finding ways that I can add a little bit of value to what you're already doing. I really feel strongly about the culture piece, and I'm glad that that kind of showed throughout the interview process. I really feel that I align well with Kilmer and what they're already doing, and hopefully that with our cultures being in alignment, we can just continue to grow together as a community. I'm all about students and student success and keeping them safe. Safety first and then success after that. How do we grow them and get them to achieve at better levels? And then working with the staff so that they can develop and become better at their craft as we work with the community to create what Kilmer is already and make it a little bit better in the future. So I'm just really honored to be here. I feel blessed to be becoming a part of this team, and I look forward to meeting the rest of you as time permits. Thank you very much.
Thank you and welcome. Thank you, Kitty. So we have the next two items is 2 and 3. If we could just do 3 first, if that's okay. I mean, it's our standard monthly reporting. So, board members, if you don't mind, do you mind looking at 3 first and see if you have any questions on, the attendance and/or the financial reports for the month?
I don't have an objection.
So were there any questions on the monthlies?
Okay. Has our enrollment followed the general trends this year, not as compared to the last 2 years maybe, but prior to that?
Can you say that one more time, Ms. Phillips?
Has our enrollment since September followed the general trends that we have seen in previous years?
I think the quick answer to that is yes.
Okay.
We are seeing a return of a number of students that are coming in even post-October 1 count. So we anticipate as we move into next year that that growth will steadily return to what we saw pre-pandemic levels.
But let me add to when we were campaigning last time, we were looking at growth rates of 2 to 2.5%. This represents about 1%, so it still hasn't bounced back to the same level of growth that we had seen in those 3 or 4 years prior to the pandemic.
That's a worthy note. Yep.
Thank you for that, Dr. Summers. I wasn't quite sure how to answer that question.
It looks like our largest growth is still Bear Creek.
Yes.
Any other questions on the monthly financial reports? If not, we can jump back to C2 and start the budget review.
Thank you. Good evening. It is my pleasure to present the proposed budget for D38 for the fiscal year 22-23. The board members have a printed copy of the proposed budget, and it is also available on board docs. This slide shows sort of a crosswalk between the slides in the presentation and the corresponding page in the proposed budget. So if you're trying to follow along, I will be referencing the page number quite often throughout the presentation. First up are our revenue-based assumptions. We are building this budget based on an estimated pupil count for 22-23, including Monument Academy, of 6,445 students, and that is at a per pupil funding level of $9,050 per student. You can see here the impact of the budget stabilization factor, as well as the district's net assessed valuation and next year's mill structure for our local taxes. Looking a little closer at pupil count, the 6,445 number is derived from our full-time, it's the full-time equivalent of our enrollment numbers. So the table shows actual enrollment in the different programs, some of which are not funded as a full-time equivalent. So that translates into approximately 6,445 students, an increase of 116 over the current year. We're also seeing that increase of $550 per pupil revenue, which equates to a total program increase of approximately $4.2 million.
Quick question. So again, just looking at the current count, of 6699, and then your total count here is 6744, so very conservative growth projected.
Yes, we did take a pretty conservative approach. That is true.
Okay, and just as a reminder to myself and the board members, this is part of the concept of flexible budgeting. So we will actually finalize the headcount based on the October count. So this won't be a variance for the remainder of the year because we keep it flexible until we get the final count. I just wanted to bring that up. And I appreciate the conservative approach, but it has served us well for the last 2 years, and I'd like to continue that process.
Very good, thank you.
Question?
Thank you.
On the enrollment and per pupil count section, just a question on preschool. On the third entry, we have an approximate enrollment of 60 and then a PPOR for preschool, right?
Right, they are funded at half-day rate, which
Right.
so the 45 is half, and the 60 is the number of slots that were allowed through the program.
And then if we go down the last entry, it has the MA preschool at 84. How does that funding work?
They actually do not receive funding for that preschool. There's no.
So it's private pay or
It's just part of the
scholarship?
enrollment number. Sorry.
It's private pay or scholarship?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And we also have a line there for regular additional preschool, which is tuition paid at 117 students, the second from the bottom.
Thank you.
How does the new preschool funding, 10 hours per week, fit into this?
I don't think that takes place or goes into implementation until the following school year. So we'll need to be preparing for that for sure. Any other questions on that slide? Okay. On page 2 in the proposed budget, you will see the revenue assumptions listed there. Oh, did I go backwards? I did. Sorry about that. On page 4 of the proposed budget, this does not show all the detail that is in the proposed budget on page 4, just a couple of things that we wish to highlight. Our projected revenue, total revenue after allocations and transfers is approximately $52.1 million. This budget is built aligning expenditure budget to the total revenues. So basically having no impact on fund balance. We're projecting a beginning fund balance of $14 million and keeping that constant by projecting total expenditures to equal total revenues. Moving on to expenditure assumptions, we'll take a closer look at transfers and the various funds and other impacts to our expenditures for the coming school year. On page 8 of the projected budget, you'll see this table. It's simply breaking out the 52.1 in expenditure by these major account categories. So you can see the breakout for compensation as well as other large areas of expenditure for the district.
Kitty, if I might, I just want to say thank you for doing it by major account and by major program. Exceptional work.
Thank you.
So thank you very much.
Okay, so as we think about the budget expenditure assumptions, that leads to a conversation about compensation. And this budget does propose a 6% increase for our certified staff. That includes a $500 base increase as well as steps and lanes. It also includes an average of a 6% increase across all of our classified positions, but those are distributed a little bit differently. Some jobs will see higher. For example, the clerical, IT trades, and campus security average about 9% increases, while transportation and nutrition services adjustment is a little bit smaller, and that's because they already received a significant market adjustment this current fiscal year. The budget also includes a 3% increase for administration and our professional technical staff. And finally, our benefit costs include increases for to address a 7.5% increase to our insurance that the district will cover at an approximate cost of $250,000, as well as covering the 0.5 increase to para that's effective July 1st at an approximate cost of $430,000. So the total estimated cost of this compensation initiative comes to $2.86 in additional expenditure for next year. To support that, we can see that the total program after MA allocation increases by 3.6. 80% of that is $2.8 million, which is sufficient to cover the compensation initiative that's proposed. Do you have a question?
Yeah, it's probably more of a question for Dr. Summers. When we did our bus driver increase, was that the beginning of this year?
We did do it retroactive.
Okay, it was retroactive.
Yes, it was retroactively applied to the beginning of the fiscal year.
And then where do paras fit in?
I believe they would fit in the under classified, under the first bullets. I'm not sure what the average comes out to for that particular position.
And then my last one is substitute teachers.
Subs are not necessarily accounted for in either of our licensed or our classified salary schedules. We did make some adjustments to substitute pay that did occur this year. So that's something that is factored into the allocations that actually live at each of our school levels in terms of that substitute accounting.
So Tiffany, would you like a detailed breakout? Because we can look at that. We can ask to see that at the work session in June when we follow up.
If possible.
Sure, we'd be happy to.
Okay. Okay, so next we're going to take a little bit closer look at what the transfers do and the funds that are impacted. Sorry, Mr. Schwartz?
Yeah, are you going to go through these graphs? Because I had a question on page 9. Are they simply articulating what's on page?
They are articulating the expenditures and the revenues and showing a comparison to the prior year. I don't have them in the PowerPoint presentation, but I'm happy to address your questions.
Yeah, so for my peers, I'm just looking at the graphs on page 9. And just very rudimentary, simple math. I'm trying to calculate the total cost of ownership of our employees as it relates to the amount of money we have to work with. And it looks like if I go to the bottom, I apologize for those in the audience that can't see it, but I'm looking at the blue stuff here. For those of you who have better eyes than I do. It looks like in the current fiscal and school year that we're in, if we add the employee benefits at 21% of total revenues and the salaries of 65% of total revenues, we get 86% of total revenues. Am I looking at that right?
Yeah, you're just adding the salary amount to the employee benefit amount.
Right.
To the tune of 86%.
Is there anything else that would go into the total cost of ownership of our employees? That's my first question.
Maybe some professional development expenditures.
Okay, but significantly less than 1% of total revenue, probably.
Yes.
Okay, so for comparison purposes, now we fast forward to the year coming up beginning July 1, which would be the top half, and that goes to 82%. Are we close? So if that's true, then some very good things have happened here, right? We have increased pay by 6% across the board, and we have reduced total cost of ownership by 4/86, which is almost 5%. Right?
Yes.
Okay. Does everybody understand why this is a really good thing?
Want to take it home one more time?
You're dealing with a liberal arts major here.
I know,
Dr.
you're on a
Summers.
roll.
Bear with
Schwartz.
me. This is taxing the IQ.
You're doing so well.
So the bottom line is revenues are up. We're able to finally do something within our control to increase pay for our employees who have delivered results on a consistent basis for the last decade and have earned it. It's not given. Secondly, we've reduced the total cost of ownership as a percent of the revenues we bring in, which provides significantly more agility for the district to do additional things. Fair?
That's one perspective. Kitty, I would like to actually, at our work session, kind of go through an analysis of what is the percentage increase in revenue and compare it to what these numbers are, because without looking at that, I think we're not looking at the full picture. And I'd like to see, you know, I understand what you just described from these graphs, but I'd also like to see it in relationship to those revenue changes. But not tonight.
Okay.
And one other comment is this excludes debt service as well, right? So when we look at the historical, you know, we usually say it's what, 70 to 75% of our spend. Well, this is 80-something because it excludes the debt service.
Right. So it's not quite a percent of total costs, total revenues.
Correct.
might also add that those revenues, I believe, are before the allocation to Monument Academy. So that kind of factors in as well.
Actually, that does change it significantly. So I'm glad I asked.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, so next we're going to take a little bit closer look at the allocations and transfers and the impact on our other funds.
I'm gonna ask the board, do you want to see the detail here, because this is pretty much automatic here? These are just bookkeeping entries essentially between transfers, between funds, because we're gonna have a deeper dive in June, and in all probability these numbers will change.
Right, they will. There are a couple of analyses around that. I don't know
If you want to share the highlights, that'd be
yes,
great.
Yes. So for nutrition services, what we are looking at here, there's some changes that'll be happening next year. The past 2 fiscal years, we've had increased federal funding due to funding available for the pandemic. That funding will not be available for the 22-23 school year. So we'll be reverting back to more of like an 18-19 school year model for how we build the budget for nutrition services. One of the impacts of that federal funding has been an increase to their fund balance in the nutrition fund. We will be needing to spend that down. There are requirements around that require us to only hold a fund balance that equals approximately 2 months in expenditures. So we'll be working on that. Additionally, we expect to see some significant increases to the cost of a meal due to supply chain challenges and inflation. With that, we are anticipating our meal pricing to increase by $1 up to 4.10 cents per meal. And this is also a function of the federal rate of reimbursement and state statute. In the transportation fund, also to address increasing costs due to escalation in fuel, we are recommending an increase to the transportation fee of $15 per semester, or $115 total per student per semester. This would project an increase of $90,000 in revenues to the transportation fund. And then finally, in the capital reserve fund, we are starting out the year with a pretty significant balance as we continue some carryover projects that are indicated there on the right-hand side, as well as suggesting a general fund allocation of 1.7 to address these other needs of the district, including leases and building, grounds, maintenance, and repairs. So what are the next steps? I would like to point out there is a 5-year projection included in the proposed budget on page 18. We would like to discuss that in more detail during the work session on June 7th. The revised salary schedules for both certified and classified can be found in the consent agenda, so just a reminder that's there. We are currently waiting for a proposal from SIDSIP on the property and liability insurance, so that could impact some budgeting numbers. And finally, we will need to put a notice out to the public and get the proposed budget onto the website to comply with regulations around that, as well as determining when the public hearing will be held, possibly to precede the June 7th work session. And then we will plan to review the budget as proposed with the Financial Advisory Committee at our upcoming June meeting. And then finally, the budget adoption is scheduled for June 20th board meeting.
Thank you. Dr. Summers, could you address the issue of new salary structures that I heard reference to? Because I don't believe this is the big project that we've initiated. This is more limited, and I'd just like you to address it from what it is versus what it may not be yet.
Correct. So what you have in this proposed budget with the revised schedules, as we have alluded to them, is simply the addition that we are receiving for increased revenues in this upcoming fiscal year as applied to this upcoming expenditure plan that we have laid out for you. What it does not do is address the market adjustments that we are still motivated to address as part of our bigger overall compensation philosophy and ideal state. So when you think about that 6% bump, that's something that we do feel strong about given what we have available to us with these upcoming revenues. However, what I'd like to point out is it's not closing the gap, because as we're making this movement, also other districts are making movements that are similar, or even in some cases significantly higher, which means that all of the data that we have looked at over the course of this year is still in a position where we have to continue to address this more systemically, comprehensively, and longer term.
As part of our strategic plan.
Yes, thank you.
And is there a time when we're going to review that? Is that
So we are looking at going into more of those details with you again at the June 7th work session. That would follow the conversations that we've had from the last work session, as well as going all the way back to earlier spring and even the fall, to continue with that momentum, if you will, to really zoom in on how we ideally can address this compensation gap over the long term and more sustainably in alignment with the strategic plan.
Awesome. That's what I wanted to hear. So our work session coming up, we're going to have a deeper dive into the budget, and they will have the questions that we've asked tonight in more detail. But then we'll also look at the, where is the gap between our communities, our surrounding communities, salary structures, and ours, and start seeing a roadmap forward there, which I think will be very helpful for us in the June work session. Any other questions or comments for Kitty?
You want to go first?
I always go first. You go first.
So I actually want to make a comment that this is so much different than this. I appreciate that. But I do agree also with Chris that can we make sure there's some valuable information in here that we still have that on our website. For example, the 1999 MLO, it's laid down to the penny of where we spend it in this. So I think that's valuable information that I think our community would appreciate seeing is where's my 1999 MLO money go? I liked also that you showed the ownership. A lot of people talk about property taxes versus ownership, and so I like that this shows exactly how much ownership taxes come to the district as well. So I applaud that as well, because I was just wondering that today. I'm like, how much do we get for ownership taxes in here already? So I just my only comment is wanting to make sure that we still keep some of the detailed information that helps people to follow the money, that knows where my property taxes go and how much goes to our teachers and how much does the state backfill. That's still, I think, important for people to see too. But this is good. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate those comments, and I think this is going to be a bit of an evolving document until we land on something that we're all comfortable with. I would like to take a closer look at the particular information you point out in there that you want included. The details behind most of the reports in the proposed budget that was posted on board docs, that's the summary piece. There are details behind that I can put out there as well, and then what other components that you find are necessary.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that's just the financial transparency piece on our website. Right. When folks say, well, where is it? It's right there on our website. It says financial transparency. You click on it and it goes through everything. So thank you.
And to add to that, then the work session in June is a good chance for the public to come and to really hear some of the detail, because we are going to we're going to do our deep dive in the work session in June. Ron, did you have a comment or question?
My question may come up later, so it's about the 2022-23 license salary schedule, which is under the consent agenda. Will we review that a little bit later?
Now might be the more appropriate time to bring it up if you'd like.
Happy to. Just a simple question. How was the delta derived from the 2021-22 schedule versus 2022-23 schedule?
So what you're looking at is the framework for our salary schedule is still a function of the 2018-19 salary schedule committee that met, which recommended at that time that the percentage increase that we can apply to our schedule starts with a $500 base increase across all cells, and then includes the difference from that $500 base to the calculation that arrives at the 6% average raise, if you will, across the schedule. So what you're looking at there is teachers will receive their step, and they'll receive, for those individuals that have additional educational attainment, they'll receive their lanes as well. So they can move both down a step and over, depending on the individual teacher and what their qualifications are. So the math's a little, you have to look at it from both that $500 base increase and then the remainder leading up to whatever the 6% bump
But
in pay is.
ultimately, if I took last year's pay times 1.06, I get to what's on the schedule?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And then the classified schedules are a function of each of the different employee groups based on the different averages that we alluded to earlier in the presentation. With all of that, just a quick shout out to Kristen Stieber, because she did a lot of the Excel effort to get those schedules where they are for you in the consent agenda this evening.
Thank you, Chris.
And one more note on that is that will enable us to begin to issue contracts to our teachers with your approval of that, pending approval of that tonight. Then we're in a position where we can cement those rates as we're going into the upcoming school year with both our certified folks as well as our classified.
Matt, any questions or comments? No. Ron, anything else?
No, thank you.
Tiffany?
Actually, Ron opened a can of worms, because I was going to actually ask about that. When we talked about, when I saw this, my only question was, is this, I'm trying to find the word, is this a restructure of what we've had before? Are we looking at restructuring at all?
It is not a restructure of the salary schedule as it has been functioning over the past few years. The goal is to move forward with I don't know if restructure is the best term. The goal is to get it to a much better place as we're going forward. So this is a step in the right direction. It's not everywhere we want to be yet.
Right, but let me make sure I'm understanding, because we start talking, the same. We're talking about salary either way. This year's budget is based on the percentage increase that we have in receipts. Mm-hmm. The restructuring of our compensation plan is unique and separate from this.
Correct.
Teresa, anything?
No.
Thank you very much, Kitty. I'd like to excuse Dr. Summers and ask Amber Wetstein to come in and sub while we continue the agenda. And this is due to a daughter's soccer game in the state championship game, and we don't want him to miss that.
Just started.
So. You better hurry and be safe.
Thank you. And you're in Miss Wetstein's very capable hands, so thank you for that accommodation. I appreciate that very much.
Good luck.
Thank you. Don't lose your voice. Thank you, Amber. So we'll move into the next agenda item, which is C4, consider approve revisions to the 22-23 school district calendar. And Ms. Wetstein, you're going to lead us in that conversation, I believe.
I am, thank you. So as you saw in your board packet, we are proposing some minor changes to the upcoming school year calendar. After some adjustments that were made this current year, where we provided additional professional development and planning time for our secondary teachers. They were very appreciative of that, and they have requested that that time continue and extend into next school year. So if you would advance, Mark, thank you. So what we are proposing is that days that are already designated as either work days or professional learning community days at the elementary school level be extended to high school. And because we have less wiggle room, if you will, for secondary as far as snow days, we're proposing, as we did this year, including some e-learning where students would complete assignments at home, pre-planned by the teachers on those days so that it does not impact our seat time. So as you can see, in our rationale, the additional PLC time at the secondary level will allow for increased teacher collaboration, support increased morale, and time for planning for individual student needs. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
So if I am understanding this right, you're wanting to do for next year what you did this year, and the reaction feedback has been very positive.
Similar to what we did this year, and yes, the reaction has been extremely positive.
Okay, very good. Any other questions, comments?
Yes, Amber, I have a question. Feedback on graduation, since we're talking about the calendar, and I know that we can't change it this year, but feedback that our graduations occur often on the same day as the last day of school, that we can try to ensure that our graduation dates in the future are not on the same day as end of classroom parties. Are you trying to work on that?
Yes, thank you. We have received quite a bit of feedback regarding the challenges with holding our graduation ceremonies on the last day of school, because at times our teachers have to choose whether or not to attend their own child's graduation, or to choose to stay with their class that last day of school. So we are in the process of looking at alternative dates for next school year. We plan that our graduation ceremonies will not be on the last day of school beginning next year.
Thank you.
If I could, I was going to bring up the same point because I've had a number of conversations about this the last couple months. I'm purely wondering if it's possible to consider having a graduation that's on a non-school day, for the purpose of, I've had conversations with teachers who would love to be at graduation for students that they've known for any number of years, but when they're in the classroom, they're not able to be. And then in terms of just a community value around celebrating all of our graduates, in an ideal world, it would be wonderful to have those graduations on a day when anybody who wanted to attend could freely attend.
We agree, and we are in the process of looking at dates that the World Arena or an alternative venue might be available either on a weekend or on a day possibly after school is out.
Great, thank you for considering that.
I have one other question. When I received feedback from elementary teachers, we used to do the Friday during Teacher Appreciation Week used to be a PLC day for report cards. Some elementaries are changing that so that it accommodates teachers, so they're not working on that over the weekend. Can you talk to that a little more?
Yes, there has been some inconsistency in how principals are providing time for teachers to do that report card prep, and very recently, the elementary principals came together and had a discussion to agree upon those last 3 days in May after students are released for specific work, one being the development of report cards and another being the placement of students in classes for the upcoming school year. So that will take effect this next school year as well.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the revisions of the 2022-2023 district calendar as presented.
I'll second that motion, Mr. Taylor.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none. Ms. Wood?
Mr. Clausen.
Aye.
Ms. Phillips.
Aye.
Mr. Schwartz.
Aye.
Mr. Taylor.
Aye.
Ms. Upchurch.
Aye.
Thank you very much. We'll now move to C5. It's a policy update that was referred to earlier. It's an introduction of a new regulation, IHAK-R, character education. And Ms. Wetstein, if you could lead us through that.
Yes. As you see in board docs, we have drafted an initial draft for a regulation that will accompany policy IHAK, our policy on character education. And because it's short, I'm going to just read it out loud. In accordance with Board of Education Policy IHAK, Character Education, the board believes in providing programming that supports the development of student character to promote a productive citizenry. While parents are the primary and most important moral educators of their children, the board strives to provide programming within the schools that complements and enhances values taught within the home. This includes programming that aligns with the characteristics of the district's portrait of a graduate and traits such as honesty, respect, responsibility, and integrity. When considering resources to support character education, school leaders shall seek input from stakeholders, including the school's accountability committee, staff, and students. Character education curricular resources shall be available to any individual for review upon request. Requesters shall be provided with the opportunity to review available materials either digitally or in person as appropriate. It is the intent of the board that character education programs are inclusive of all students and free of bias and politicalization. The board shall have final approval of all character education curricular resources. This regulation is in response to the board discussion throughout this school year regarding the adoption of character education resources. And so we'd like to formalize a process in which the board can approve all resources being utilized in our schools. Our hope is that we would bring to you in August a presentation of all current resources being used within our schools. And then after that, during that time, we provide you an opportunity to approve those. And then in the future, as new materials are proposed, we would bring those forward similar to how we bring forward academic curriculum.
Well, I'd like to say thank you because we had a work session March 1st, I think it was, or maybe earlier, but we talked about social and emotional learning, which is the same as what we're talking about here in terms of character education. And I appreciate the responsiveness and this first draft that we've seen, and look forward to, you know, between now and August, you know, the continued fine-tuning, if you will, of this process. And thank you so much, because I think it's exactly what the community was looking for and asking for. Any other comments or questions from the board members?
So we'll approve this for second reading at our June meeting, correct?
Typically, the board does not approve regulations, so this is an accompaniment to the policy IHAK. Okay. But if you would like to provide us some consensus on direction on any changes you would like to see made, we would be happy to hear those.
Yeah, let me add there, because it's an important point. We don't approve any of the regulations within the school system, right? We as a board really focus on the policies. The district, as an accommodation to us and to the community, essentially has said, we've listened, this is what we want to do, and they're presenting it publicly. And so, you know, that's why it's not a first and second reading per se, because it's not policy, it's a regulation. Thank you very much. Any other questions, comments? Very good. Thank you, Amber.
You're welcome.
I would like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second the motion, Mr. Taylor.
Any comments or questions? Hearing none. Ms. Wood?
Mr. Clausen?
Aye.
Ms. Phillips?
Aye.
Mr. Schwartz?
Aye.
Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Ms. Upchurch?
Aye.
Let's go ahead and adjourn our meeting then, and we'll meet on the first Tuesday of June for our work session. Thank you very much.